Hi everyone and welcome to the second stream for today. Let me know if you can again see me well, hear me well. I still don't really trust this setup yet. Let's switch to this screen here. Let me know if you can see the editor well. Let me bring up the chat real quick here. YouTube is telling me that the stream is bad for some reason. Let's see if that changes. And let's see here. I'll wait a little bit. Okay, health is good. Let's see how many people there will be. I see different people than earlier. So I assume that's because of different time zones, the different time. So I expect that a little bit of introduction to what we've been doing earlier is due. I mean, let me know. Maybe I missed someone earlier, but so far everyone I see in the chat is new. So please, if you saw the first stream today, type in the chat that you saw the first stream. And if this is the first stream you're watching today, please also let me know that this is the first stream you're watching today, so I know how much of an introduction I really need to give. Let's see if this works. Now you should see again only me, right? Yeah, that seems to work. Perfect. First stream, okay. And also I changed the settings, so now there should be a much lower delay between me saying something and it arriving on your end. So let's do the same test again as earlier. Hi there again, Buffus. Hi there for the first time today. The other guys, I will do the same test. I will count to 3, and on 3 I will clap my hands. And as soon as you hear that, please spam clap to the chat. And hopefully it should be better than earlier. Earlier it was roughly 20 seconds. Let's see. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, that's better. That's like 12 or 13 seconds. That will give us something to work with. Okay, great. So since most people seem to be new, let me try to give you a quick intro what we're doing today and in general. So what the hell was that? Oh, interesting. Didn't know this feature. Okay, whatever, sorry. Got distracted by the YouTube chat. I have a little more than a week of free time, which I want to spend working a lot on Citybound, doing a lot of live streaming, because it's fun. And I will just be working on exactly the things that I wanted to work on anyways, which is first finishing the zoning prototype and then working on housing demand. If you followed the blog, you saw that the zoning prototype is taking a bit longer because I redecided to basically re-implement the planning system. I discovered that it can be done in a much simpler way, and not only does the road UI, which has really been a problem for people and even myself, improve a lot, but it will make it easier to implement zoning and easier to implement all kinds of other things in the future. Cool, so that's what we're doing. And to illustrate it in particular, I drew a picture earlier. Give me a second to connect my iPad here real quick so I can show you the theoretical framework of what we're implementing. So let's switch back to this view. Did that work? No. Okay, let's switch back to this view and use reflector here to mirror my drawn notes here. Let me know if you can see that well. Basically, the idea is that the new planning interface will be based on one simple idea, which I call a gesture. And a gesture is just here, these line segments with control points at each corner, very similar to vector paths in drawing applications, if you're familiar with that. And these are basically what you input as the player, and they serve as an approximate input representing, for example, roads which you want to create, or zones which you want to create, railroad lines, maybe other stuff in the future. All kinds of things can be easily represented like that, and you can draw them into a plan. You can move them around by dragging and dropping the control points. You can add and delete control points and so on. I think just based on this description, you can kind of imagine what it should work like. And then, for example, for the roads, we want the roads to be curved, so we came up with this simple algorithm earlier, which takes the straight line segments and kind of draws this nice curved road into there. And then it, based on that, creates the actual lanes, finds the intersections between roads, creates these as well. And the way that works is that, and these are these numbers which I have painted here, each gesture is not just a path of points connected by lines, but it also has some metadata. For example, here we say that these gestures have the meaning of representing roads, and each gesture has this like information that it wants to have 2 lanes on this side, 2 lanes on this side, or here like 1 lane, or here just 1 lane on one side, which results in this picture in the end. And this is the really simple framework for how we will be able to draw pretty much anything. Let me quickly show you what that looks like in code. Gesture is a collection of 2-dimensional points associated with a gesture intent. This is what I called metadata earlier. Right now I have 2 kinds of them, either a road intent or a zone intent. We will first just start with the road intent. Let's quickly look at what that looks like. So a road intent just specifies the number of lanes going forward along the gesture and the number of lanes going backwards, so on each side. The zone intent is a little more complicated. As you can see here, it will support the classical land use. So you can say that within a certain shape, I only want to allow residential, commercial, or a combination of them by overlaying the 2 different shapes, or you can use a shape to set a maximum height restriction within an area, or the setback from the road. But this we will probably see more in the following days. Today we'll just try to get the road laying interface working with that. I will get to your questions after I'm done with this explanation, because it's really important for me for this to be coherent, so all the new people have a good understanding of what we're doing. So everything revolves around plans, and if you think about it, now that we have these gestures which can represent pretty much anything that we want to have created in our city, well, a plan is nothing else than a collection of gestures that we want to implement. And already going a little further, we have 2 things. We have what I call the master plan, which is the plan representing what is already built in the city, what already exists. And we have proposals, which are also basically plans, which represent changes that we want to do to the city in the future. And the idea is that once you are happy with a change, you implement it, which means that you basically merge it with the main plan. And this is where these gesture IDs become important here, because we want to create the possibility for 2 different plans to refer to the same road, but to have different opinions of how that should look, because you might have the existing road like you drew it for the first time, and then you might decide that no, the curve should really be a little different than that, or maybe you want to make it wider at another lane on one side. And this is represented in a change proposal plan, but they still refer to the same road, and this is important when implementing the plans, and it's even more important when 2 different multiplayer players do different conflicting changes on the same road. Then it's really important that we know that they both mean the same road and we need to resolve the conflict. So how do we achieve that? By basically giving gestures unique names, and unique names in computer science are often handled by UUIDs, which are randomly generated numbers, being exactly like a kind of name or reference for something, where they are so long that the chance that you will accidentally generate the same name twice is astronomically low. I showed it to the people earlier, I will just quickly say it again because it's such a fun number, where, what was it, I think you need to generate, what was it, like 80, you need to generate 1 billion UUIDs per second for 85 years, so you get a 50% chance of accidentally generating the same name twice, which is really good enough for me. So we're using that as names for our gestures, and then if you look here, a plan is not just a collection of anonymous gestures, but it's actually a hash map, so a map of gesture IDs to gestures, which basically says that this plan thinks that the gesture with this name looks like this. And then when you merge two plans, like we implement here, it's clear which changes should override which previously existing versions of a gesture. The question is, how do you represent if you want to completely delete a gesture? For example, if you want to completely delete a whole road, for that we just have the simple field in here in gesture, which we can set to true, and then this gesture is interpreted as deleted, and this can override our existing opinion of this gesture as well. Okay, at this point it's really important to me that all the new people, please let me know if that made sense. I went through it really quickly. If this kind of conceptual framework makes sense for you and you can imagine how that works. Oh, it's so awesome to get the answers that quickly. I was always like, had these awkward pauses earlier. So yeah, cool, thanks for letting me know. So we kind of, I already had some of this code before I started the live stream earlier. What we basically did was flesh out all of the details, and we started to implement the user interface for editing the proposals, which consists basically of two parts. The first thing is we have a gesture canvas, which we use to add new control points to the world, basically. So we create a new control point to start a new gesture, we click again to create a second one, they get connected by a line, and so on, and we click until we're done. Or we might add new control points to the beginnings and ends of existing gestures, and this is all what this canvas is there for. You can see that it basically only remembers whether it's which mode it is in. So are we going to start a new gesture, or are we going to add a control point to an existing gesture? Once again, we can refer to them just with the gesture ID, really convenient. The other part of the UI is what I call the control point interactable, which is exactly like a clickable dot representing one control point, and that's responsible, of course, when you click and drag it to move the control point in the plan of our current proposal. So all of these things remember the proposal ID that they are going to change if you handle them, as well as the gesture ID. This one also remembers, of course, which individual point within the gesture this dot refers to. One additional detail which you need to know, a proposal is not just directly a plan, but it's a history of steps for making a new plan, because of course while you draw new roads or while you manipulate them, you want to be able to undo and redo. So instead of keeping everything in one large plan, we just create a tiny plan for each change that we do and keep the whole history of that, and then when we want to apply that, we just merge them together into one plan. That's the idea. And that mostly works. I will unfortunately need to spend a couple more minutes in the beginning here just getting some of the type errors fixed, and then we can continue to, we will first fix the errors. We will implement a really simple version to actually a really simple version of rendering these plans and proposals, and make sure that everything is hooked up properly, that everything gets initialized properly, and then we should already be able to create some gestures within the running UI. And like I said in the earlier stream, I didn't completely remove the old road laying interface yet. We will basically have them both in parallel, so we can interact with both of them, compare them, and see what we're still missing in the new interface. Okay. Good. Before I get started with fixing these small mistakes, Tom Fu asked a technical question. And let me quickly check if I'm hiding the chat here. I mean, all of the people watching live see the chat, and I think you should also be able, if you watch the stream later, to see the chat as it happened, which is a cool new feature. But still, I will try my best to also show the chat on screen whenever possible. So why is the unique ID, the gesture ID, not an upcounting number? Because, of course, that's very straightforward. But then you need a centralized point where you register new gestures. So a natural place for that would be the plan manager, because there is exactly one of them and it also keeps the master plan. But then keep in mind that all of this is multiplayer, and some of the user interfaces, of course, only run on the respective machines of the players, and the actors are essentially all, you can never know where they really run. And you have to, they can't read each other's mind. The only way they can communicate is through messages. So then to create a new gesture in the canvas, for example, it would first have to ask the plan manager, hey, can you give me the next up-counted name for a gesture, and wait for the response, and it would make it really complicated. And the cool part about the UUIDs is, since they're randomly generated and you can be sure that the chance of them colliding is so low, it actually doesn't matter where you generate them. So the canvas can generate a new UUID, which will be unique for sure, and then just tell the plan manager, hey, here's a new gesture, I came up with this name for it, just roll with it, and it will work out. So that's, the UUIDs allow you to distribute the creation of the names to wherever, which is a really powerful concept in distributed systems. Okay. So I just have some bugs in this code, which are very typical Rust bugs, because Rust is very good at preventing you from shooting your own foot. Or the classical example, and what it basically complains about here, is that you can't at the same time look at something while you're changing it. It's really, really strict about it, and even though I'm not like changing exactly the same part as I'm also looking at the same time, it doesn't trust it. It forces me to keep these things separate, and give me just a minute to look at it and think how I can untangle this and make it all work. And then we continue with the rendering, actually, okay? If in the meantime you have any questions about what I said now in this very compressed, well, the 20 minutes to introduce this, let me know. I wonder how we can do it for the future streams. I could either try to give this intro every time or refer people to the intro, but then they miss whatever I do next. So I don't know if you have ideas about that, how we could handle that to make sure that everything is kind of in the loop when they start the live stream. I mean, I probably wouldn't mind giving an increasingly shorter intro every time, and hopefully, I mean, very soon we have this in the game, so I can actually just demonstrate it with the game, what we're doing. So probably we just need to separate our changes that we do here. And yeah, I also think it's also just a good practice to iterate on explanations. So I'll try to do that again for every stream. Oh yeah, I explained more about the code. Now I'm silent because I want to just quickly get this done before we move on to actually new code that you will be able to follow with me. Rust will actually get better about this kind of stuff soon, with slightly less strict, more reasonable checks on borrowing. But right now we need to hold its hand a little bit and to convince it that we're actually doing something reasonable. Let's see if that does it. Okay, that... Oh, so was the problem just that we access the user interface here? So that would be an easy fix. We can save all of this. See if this doesn't have errors. Yeah, I mean, I offered the same to the people in the first stream as well. If you have completely random questions about Citybound or what I've been up to, feel free to ask that in the chat, and as soon as I'm done with this little thing here, I'll get to it. Also, the way I want to do these streams, I didn't do it in the first stream yet, but the idea is that I basically do programming until I get too tired to concentrate on that, and then I'm open to do like hangout, patrons calling style live discussion with people calling in. The problem earlier was just that not really enough people were up to it. All you need is a microphone and to not be shy, and I'm really happy to talk to you in person about Citybound. I think it's always really interesting to see and to hear all your thoughts. But why does that borrow self? So weird. Okay, so that fixed a little bit. But ensure preview. Oh, because it returns, I see. Okay, but I mean, this is actually completely... This is completely separate from what we're doing otherwise, so if we just change around the order, that should actually do the trick. And we need that. Actually, here we should be able to just do state user interface. Oops, need that. Guess. So can we already do that? Or will that break everything? Okay, now let's actually be precise here and Rust will thank us for it. So we do this. Almost there, guys. Let's see, how many people do we have? 17 people. Cool, that's off to a good start. Okay, so can we just drop this? I mean, this is really where I would need a new version of Rust. Will all these new commands come with UI elements? What exactly do you mean? Like all of these control points, you will actually visually see them and you can manipulate all of them. And there will also be basically this kind of paintbrush-like UI where you can choose the brush that paints a two-lane road and then quickly draw a line with that, switch to another tool, draw a line with that. That's kind of the UI that I'm going to. And of course you will be able to manipulate both the control points as well as the intent, so the number of lanes, for example, of existing gestures. Oh, I see. Oh yeah, sure, it will be both clickable buttons and key commands. Does this fix it? Intent is actually on a per gesture basis. I decided that. That's a great question, by the way. It's on a per gesture basis, and if you want changing number of lanes, you basically just start a new road immediately after, and the game will create either an intersection or like a transition that makes sense. The intersections already work. We will probably need to put some work into... We will need to put some work into creating some new intersection logic to create nice transitions of numbers of lanes. This is something that never really existed, but that would be nice to do now. Let's see when we will find time for that, all right? Okay. Why does that keep borrowing it? Okay, let's try to split this into two functions, even though it's not nice. Just again to convince Rust that we're not changing something that we're currently also looking at. Really hope it will work. Sorry, I wanted to do this kind of stuff in between the two streams, but I was too tired of the first stream. Actually needed the whole break to get some energy again. Okay, no errors anymore. Perfect. Let me actually quickly create a commit for this. No. So let's commit all of this. Or you know what? Let's actually just do one huge monster commit once we have most of it working. Yeah, that should be okay. Never mind. So what we can do now is to render our gestures both once in our existing master plan as well as whatever proposal each player is currently looking at. So for that, let's see where this would make sense. I guess here, that would make sense here. So let's use my rendering library is called Monet, and we need a renderable. Oh, I guess we already have that already import. So we already have the render ID. We want to be able to implement renderable and renderable ID. And then we need to implement renderable for plan manager. I will first do a naive implementation that basically redraws everything all the time, and then later we can do a more optimized one. But since that will be, again, kind of boring work, let's just do something really simple for now. So, okay, renderable, we need to have two functions. Setup in scene. And render to scene. So what do we need to draw? Well, basically, if we look at our picture here, we only need to draw dots for the control points and lines in between for now. Later we will do more elaborate preview of the roads to be drawn, obviously. Yeah. So since the dots all look the same, we only need to generate the geometry for them once. So let me think. Dot geometry. I would suggest that we just represent the control points as empty circles. So for that, we basically recreate the. What do we need? We need band to geometry. We need band and the path, and here the C path. Okay. So we do band to geometry, and it's going to be a little above the ground actually. We create a new band from a path and the width. Let's say that the width of our ring will be 0.3, and then we need to create a path that represents a circle. So C path, new. We'll just create 2 points, and we basically create one. Oh no, a vector of segments. So we also need to have import segments. Segments can be either a line or an arc, and we will basically construct a circle from 2 arcs. So segment. Why does that not autocomplete? What's up with that? Segment arc with direction. So the arc starts at, and we earlier somewhere we defined this constant here of control point handle radius, and let's actually draw it at exactly the size that is also clickable, just because that's the most intuitive. So create an arc at a position And let's just say x is minus control point handle radius, y is 0.0. Let me think about it in a coordinate system. Let's actually use the iPad to visualize that. So we have here our coordinate system. We start at minus the radius. We want to have a direction, this is x, y, that points upwards. And our endpoint here, which will create an arc like this. And then here we will have the opposite to create this arc. So with this picture here, we start at x minus control point handle radius 0, 0. Our direction is a vector that points up in y. Just realized that you can't distinguish x and y at all because I do it super sloppily. Y, okay. Something that points up in y direction, so 0, 0, 1.0. And our endpoint is a new point at positive control point handle radius. I should probably someone create a shortcut for a circle, but let's just do like this now. Okay, that's the first one. Duplicate that. It starts at positive. Here it points down. So minus 1.0 and goes back to our initial point of negative control point handle radius 0, 0. This creates a path representing a circle. We create a band around it with a certain width, create a geometry from that. That should do it. Let's see if it complains. Oh, here it should say new. Okay. And now, as soon as the code is correct, it also auto-formats it. Yeah, arbitrary vector glyphs would be cool. I only just started to have arbitrary shapes and being able to generate geometry from them, but it's not well integrated into the game yet. We'll improve that a little bit with the zone drawing, because then we actually need to draw like colored polygons, right? So we have our dot geometry. So what do we do? We want to register the dot geometry as a new batch with the renderer, because we will use batch drawing, which means that instead of manually drawing every circle, we just tell the renderer once what a circle looks like and then give it all the positions where to draw one, and the GPU is super fast in drawing them on the screen. So we add a batch to this scene. Now that's something super ugly, which I still need to fix with the renderer, that I need to hand choose a unique batch ID that doesn't collide with anything else in the game. I don't even know what already exists. Let's choose something like 17,000 and see if we have any glitches. That's a big to-do for me to fix, but again, quite boring for live streams. Our prototype geometry is the dot geometry, and that's it. So now that we have the batch, later in the rendering function, we can actually, is that how that looks like? We can just submit the positions at which to draw these. And for the lines connecting the dots, we will actually need to manually draw them in the render function. Yeah. What about this? Oh, and we just unwrap. Gotta be valid. Interesting that it's showing me these errors so late. Okay, no errors. So here in the rendering, we first want to make sure that we have a preview of the currently resulting plan. So we do again, actually let me think. We need to figure out the correct UI state for this renderer. So and then we do values mutable. No, we actually can just do render ID dot machine ID. This should become public. Okay, so let's change somewhere else. Oh shit, my laptop is draining battery so fast. Let me get the charging cable here. Doing the live streaming and transcoding and also compiling the code currently is quite a lot. I'm quite impressed that a MacBook can handle that nowadays, but still it wants to be connected to power. Okay. Good. Good. I think we will actually not need in the state here the render ID, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if we can leave that away for now. So first we want to ensure that we have a preview. Okay, now it complains about this. Okay, I need to raw ID, then we can get the machine ID, right? So maybe to explain what ensure preview does, we want to, when rendering what's currently going on, we want to render both the current master plan representing what already exists, as well as the changes of our contained in our current proposal. So we basically constantly want to have a preview of the merge of our proposal with the master plan. And so we don't have to do that all the time. I have this current preview inside the UI state here, which I generate when I need it. So I actually merge the master plan with the currently looked at proposal. but then I leave it like this and only recalculate it when I need to. Basically, when I move something around or when I add something new, then I delete this preview to mark that it's invalid, and then the next time I render it, I will recreate the preview. Making sure just to not constantly recompute everything just for rendering. So we ensure the preview. Ensure preview. Again. Wait, why is that on that? Yeah, this is somehow really messed up. This is a little unclean. Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to avoid. But you can't always have perfect programming work for the stream. Okay, this will be a bit ugly, so proposal is get current proposal and then we can do self ensure preview for this machine ID, this proposal ID. Let's preview spec preview can be same. And then we can start drawing. Sorry, that was a long thing. So now we can actually draw the dots, and then maybe we'll do something. We will do something nicer for the lines as well. So for gesture, in preview.gestures. So this is basically the resulting gestures after merging the master plan with our proposal. And for each gesture, or for each control point in gesture.points, we want to, or we actually want to let's actually collect control point positions, all of them, and then send them as one batch to the renderer. That's actually the super fastest way to do things. So preview gestures, iterate, map each gesture, actually flat map because each gesture has several control points, gesture dot points map. No, actually just gesture dot points. This is already the format that we want. And then collect that, and then we can send that to the renderer. So render ID adds several instances. Hey there, thanks for joining us. Scene ID, batch ID is our batch ID which we used here earlier, super ugly, again magic numbers which need to be fixed. In this frame, oh, and now we need actual instances, so we actually do need to map that. Map point, then we want to create we need to import that. Menu instance. What do we have here? And I need to fix this error before it can give me proper autocomplete. No. Okay, whatever. We have to create it manually. Instance position. Now we need a three-dimensional position, so it's point X, point Y, 0.2. Instance direction, I think, has to be, since they shouldn't be rotated, yeah, 1.1, 2.0, kind of weird. Instance color. What color do we want our handles to have? I would say for now just black. But let's actually add that to our file that contains all colors. Gesture-based planning, control point color, or just control point, and we will just put black for now, but so we can easily access and change that later. Control point. View style colors. And let's see, this should draw the points. Then we'll try to do the lines a little more intelligently. Oh, we need to iterate. So here, minus. So finally we can add several instances. Give me a second, I just need to write something. Cool, okay, so now we can actually send all instances. So this is actually control point instances at once to the renderer. So, regarding drawing of lines, we will we will do something stupid, whatever, we will improve it later. So again, for gesture in preview gestures values, and we enumerate them. So we have kind of this running counter, which I will just call I. We basically, what do we want to do? We want to draw a path of line segments, right? New, and then what we do is gesture points. We iterate over the points of a gesture in windows of size 2. Map window. And then for each window of 2 points, we create a new segment line from the first part of the window to the second part of the window. So basically always taking pairs of points within a gesture and creating a line segment in between them is what that means. And then we collect that into a path, and we create a band from that, and again create a geometry, and then just draw this geometry every single time. Band to geometry, band new. Hi there, good to see you. From our line path with a width of, let's also say 0.3. And then we just update, we use this thing called update individual where we now have to come up with a unique number for each single gesture. So what we'll do is we'll start at 18,000 here and add our running count, so each gesture can have its own geometry, and then we need to think later what if we delete gestures. We need to make sure to draw nothing again, and okay, that's a bit annoying, but let's just try the quickest way to get something on the screen, and then if it looks glitchy and broken, we'll do the first step necessary to make it work. Okay, and geometry instance with color, and let's introduce another color here. Connecting, or yeah, gesture lines will be, let's try to go for like a light gray, so that might be something like 0.7, 0.7, 0.7. Colors, gesture lines. Good. Is it a decal? Yeah, I guess so. What? Oh, expect this to be valid. And here, let's also call this like 1.0 height. And this is okay, no errors. So I think the only thing that's really missing to get something running now is to hook everything up properly and to, yeah, essentially try it out. So let's try to go there as quickly as possible. Give me just 1 second. I will open the window for a short while because the oxygen is running out and it becomes hard to think. If you have any questions so far, let me know. Let me know how you feel. I mean, I feel like this was kind of boring code to look at so far. If you have any wishes for this stream or the upcoming ones, let me know, and I will be happy to see what you think. Yeah, I'm just still taking a short break, getting some fresh air. Be right back. Okay, cool, thanks for the feedback. What exactly do you mean with don't corner yourself into doing a lot of rework? You mean like the fact that I redo the whole topic? Also, I was thinking, since I was trying to kind of think ahead, and there's probably still some more boring work left. So what I would suggest is actually to switch the stream to a patrons calling style thing, where we just discuss everything in general. Again, if there will be enough people, and then I will actually end the stream and work a bit on my own, so we are ready tomorrow to do some more interesting work during the streams. I don't know if the same people will be able to watch again tomorrow. I assume not, since it will be Monday. But instead of boring you with this like technical stuff, I think we should check if there's interest in having a live call or live conversation, something that I would be very happy to do. And then either end the stream after that or end it, or let me know what you think. I mean, I'm approaching having streamed 5 hours in one day. Oh, I see. I see what you mean. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually felt annoyed about this rendering thing. So if I take some time off now, I will actually finally fix this thing, which has been annoying me about the rendering implementation. Since it's basically a ticking time bomb and led to all kinds of graphical glitches already in the past. So let me ask directly, who would be up to, like, who has a microphone and who would be up to call in and talk about something Citybound related? It can really be anything about cities, about game development, technical stuff, whatever. If you're happy to do that, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, we can have a bit of fun in a call and talk in person. Otherwise, yeah, I'll just give you one more minute to let me know who is interested. If there's at least 2 people, I'll do it. Or one really committed person who has a topic which they really feel like discussing with me. Hey, this is an opportunity for you to do so. Let me know. Insert insect chirping noises here. Okay, last-ditch effort in making this stream a tiny bit interesting. Feel free to just write any Q&A question into the chat. Something that you've been wondering, either that we did this stream or about Citybound or anything in general. This is your chance to get a direct response from me. Otherwise, I will call it a day for streaming and do all of this boring stuff on my own, so we can have a fresher stream again tomorrow. But, you know. How do you feel about the current state of the game? This is the always the monster question. Of course, it's something that I constantly think about. Okay, cool, but then let's just do it with chat. I mean, the response time is pretty fast. So I don't know if you can imagine what it's like to work on a project for basically 4 years and in many ways be at the same point that you were 2.5 years ago, because you first, or I mean, let's just use the personal I, because that's what happened to me. I first implemented everything in JavaScript as like a really quick prototype to kind of try out the UI, try out what I wanted the game to feel like, and to see what's possible with regards to user interaction. This is when I first implemented the idea of the planning interface, for example. Then when implementing the simulation, especially the traffic simulation, realized that JavaScript doesn't cut it. I spent like a couple months to try to rewrite it in C++, go crazy in the process, discover Rust, realize that it's much nicer, and then rewrite the whole game engine from scratch in Rust, and have this epiphany, which basically completely, literally changes the game, that I really want Citybound to be multiplayer capable and to have that be a really important part of the mission. Where, of course, that's a point where people say like, yeah, multiplayer makes everything a lot more complex, why don't you focus on single player first? But my work on the engine for multiplayer allows something else, which is basically scaling the game beyond the capabilities of one single computer, where you can actually hook up several computers and distribute the simulation load onto them, and at the same time enjoy collaborative play on one city, which is really something that hasn't been seen before. And yeah, what took me a lot of time was just to build an engine from scratch that supports that. And I have that. That's basically what I presented at the Rustfest last year. I have the basics of that working. It's really crazy and surprising new technology even for myself. And now I just need to re-implement all the gameplay again. I first started with the roads, with all the complicated geometry code for that. Then, for the first time ever, got an actually sensible implementation of the economy going, something that I never had before, also not in the JavaScript prototypes. So that is some real progress. The thing is, like, you don't really see that. Like, I had tiny buildings and cars going around already in the JavaScript times, and I had some weird kind of economy going on. But this time it really makes sense, and I have the basics for that, which is great. It just doesn't look new yet. But yeah, I mean, it should be clear to you at this point that making visible progress for the point of visible progress is not really what I'm going for. I want to implement things correctly. I want to make sure that the simulation is deep enough to support interesting gameplay. And I'm getting there, and don't worry, as soon as these basics are implemented will come the times where the game starts to look radically different very quickly, as soon as I add bigger buildings, as soon as I add trains, different modes of transport, different, like, the whole service aspect, budgeting. All that will be relatively easy compared to getting the basic systems going for the first time. And yes, 4 years is not a long time for a single person to do all of that. Sometimes I'm depressed, sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing again. But I don't know, recently I've been really happy about the progress, about the opportunity. I love the idea more than ever. I'm really committed to it. It feels like something really important, and I just really want to make sure that it actually becomes what I want it to be. That's a really good point, Tom. But he basically suggests, why don't you first create a basic game that's already fun to play, and then attract fans, and then attract and then try to go from there. It makes a lot of sense. The limiting factor doesn't really feel like it's my personal time to work on it. On average, I'm quite happy with the amount of time I can put into it. I really feel that if you do that, you end up with something that's not as cool as it could be. because you create something simple and then you iteratively expand it, right? But you will be kind of trapped in the assumptions of the simple game, and then going back and rewriting that to support more complicated stuff is really a lot of work and a lot of wasted work, where I would rather take a huge time investment in front and build complex systems that support everything that I hope for, like multiplayer, and then implement them, even if that means that there's a much longer, more boring period for people to be patient through. I hope that makes sense. It's just kind of my personal philosophy. Basically, the problem with all existing city builders, and exactly the reason and motivation why I want to do Citybound, is because they're too simple. Why are they too simple? Because obviously they had goals of quickly getting a fun game out within a deadline, but then they're limited by that, and even mods who are trying to go beyond that just reach the natural limits of the engine, of the assumptions that the developers put into it. And I really want to make sure that Citybound will go beyond anything in the genre and even surprise people as kind of, holy shit, computer games can do something like this? Computers can do something like this? Like, you can simulate a city of millions on a laptop? Like, is that a possibility? And to achieve that, yeah, there's a lot of background work that's going into it. It's true. It's true that there's only one of me. Again, something where I'm starting to put work into making the code understandable, documenting it, documenting my motivations to open up the future possibility to add more people. Right now, it's more efficient for me to do everything on my own until the kind of general structure and architecture is clear. And then hopefully have a team in the future. That was a very long answer, but I feel like it's always the most important topic. I want you to know two things, basically my personal philosophy for how I want to do this. I explained this. I want to show you through my words and my actions that I'm still really committed to it, even if it takes a long time. And yeah, that I'm even still happy doing it. And a big part of that is exactly people like you who watch even the boring live stream and who are patient and understand me and are still looking forward to it. That is just honestly so cool, and it means a lot to me. So thank you a lot for that, guys. Cool. So let me know if there's any other question that you would want to have discussed now, maybe something around that. Yeah, I mean, one aspect is you say you're glad that I'm upfront about it. Sometimes I feel bad because I always like horribly overpromise with regards to deadlines. I was extremely naive in the beginning as to how long it takes me to do things, because not only do I need to figure out what I want the game to be, I then need to figure out which requirements this implies. And especially with the regards of multiplayer and the new native engine architecture, it's like I need to first become the kind of person that has the knowledge and the capabilities to implement something as complicated as that before I can implement that. And this is, I think, the biggest reason why it took so long. I started out with this crazy, horribly ambitious idea of I'm going to build my own city builder, and not just that, it will be the best city builder of all times. It will go beyond what exists in so many different categories. No idea how yet. Let's just start and try. And this is honestly the right thing to do, and learn in the process, not just the things that I obviously need to know, but also learn what I don't know that I don't know yet, this kind of deal. And just really develop as a person to the point where I feel, and this is the point where I'm at, that I can actually pull it off. It's just a lot of work. Some real talk right here. But I think you get the message. And I think this is a really nice point to actually end the stream for today. Like I said, I will be super happy to welcome you to... okay, I will answer this one more question. Did you make anything in Rust prior to starting the rewrite? No, that was my first Rust project ever. I was really happy with it from the beginning. Rust hasn't felt like an obstacle, even for the crazy stuff that I've been doing. I've started to be kind of annoyed about some parts of it, but overall it's just so comfortable. And no, don't worry. I'm happy to talk about that because it's actually interesting. I think what really helped was that I got really deeply into C++ right before the Rust rewrite, because I never did a lot of low-level programming before that, really ever. And I basically digged really deeply into the Strostrup book on C++, so like the C++ Bible, and even got into the like really complicated topics like templates and all that crazy stuff. And with this background, learning Rust and why it's so strict about certain things, what you have to pay attention to, just made a lot of sense. So in this sense, I probably had a very well-prepared introduction to Rust compared to most people, and it felt really easy and nice from the beginning, because it's not just this like weird new language which you have to fight. But coming from the C++ background, you're like, oh, it actually helps you to avoid all of these problems and prevents a whole category of bugs and problems from even happening, while at the same time giving you all of the flexibility and the raw power and performance. Now I'm starting to sound like a Rust evangelist, which I think it really deserves. Yeah. Let me know if you have any other questions. I would be happy to talk some more about whatever. I feel quite talky. Okay, cool. Then I will actually wrap up this stream. Thank you all so much for watching. Okay, perfect. I like, whenever I want to provoke a question, I just should start wrapping up the stream. I'll try to remember this trick. Have you ever played Factorio? Yes, I binge played it for quite some time. I basically had to force myself to stop playing it. I mean, it's exactly the kind of people. It's exactly the kind of game that people like us would get addicted to. What's really remarkable for me about Factorio is that it's based on one simple principle, which is executed and works incredibly well, of giving the player a set of problems and the tools to solve the set of problems and to even automate the solution, making it easier, but then basically presenting you with a new, more complex set of problems that you need to solve again, and just a really long, like almost infinitely long drawn sequence of that, where kind of the pro level play, if you compare it to what you do in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, is something like on such a different level, and that it's interesting throughout this whole development, and that you as a player kind of discover all of these ways of automating problem solving. It's just, I don't know. I never really saw that in any game before. I mean, as far as I've heard, it's inspired from like the kind of industrial Minecraft mods that were out there. And I even actually played some of them back in the day, but they only had like a couple layers of this automation to them. They were already interesting, but Factorio just took this formula and executed it extremely well, and I really admire it for that. And I think even like this core principle is something that could be beneficial to use as a lens for Citybound gameplay as well, where like, does this thing happen where things start off small and you fight small problems, and as you conquer them, the city automatically grows because, well, you solved its problems, right? And you start to get ever more complicated problems that are ever more deep and interesting. I mean, this is naturally what already happens in existing city building games. But again, Factorio executed that so cleanly that it's like a reference to compare yourself against how much you have this in your game and how well you executed it. Okay, I'm starting to get hungry, so I will wrap it up for real this time. Keep your questions for the next stream or post them on Reddit. I will be happy to answer them in both places. Let me just actually switch to this camera. Stay tuned. Check out the blog post about the hackathon, which is stickied in the subreddit. I will also announce all upcoming live streams a couple hours to an hour before they happen on Twitter and yeah, on Reddit if you check the blog post, and also on YouTube you should get notifications, I think, if you're subscribed to the channel. Until then, it was a lot of fun even doing 2 streams today, even though I was already kind of tired for the second stream and the coding was boring. I think this week is going to be a blast, and I'm looking forward to welcoming all of you again in the upcoming streams. Until then, have a good night, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever, and see you all soon. Take care, bye bye.